Senator from South Carolina, as many of our colleagues know, is a lawyer. He has been a military lawyer in the Air Force Reserve for over 20 years. If there's anyone in the United States Senate that knows about this issue from a legal, technical standpoint, I would ask, it is my colleague from South Carolina. I would ask my colleague from South Carolina, is there any way that the President of the United States could just randomly attack with a drone or a Hellfire missile someone without that person being designated an enemy combatant? And I don't think, as much as I hate to say it, that applies to Jane Fonda.
Well, thank you. That's a very good question. It's been a very lively debate. Senator Paul's got a lot of passion. That's a great thing. You can have all the passion you want. This is an important issue. We should be talking about it. I welcome a reasoned discussion. But to my Republican colleagues, I don't remember any of you coming down here suggesting that President Bush was going to kill anybody with a drone. You know, I don't even remember the harshest critics of our President Bush on the Democratic side. They had a drone program back then. So what is it, all of a sudden, that this drone program has gotten every Republican so spun up? What are we up to here? I think President Obama has, in many ways, been a very failed president. I think his executive orders overstep. I think he's intruded into the congressional arena by executive order. I think Obamacare is a nightmare. There's 1,000 examples of a failed presidency. But there's also some agreement. People are astonished that President Obama, Senator McCain, is doing many of the things that President Bush did. I'm not astonished. I congratulate him for having the good judgment to understand we're at war. And to my party, I'm a bit disappointed that you no longer apparently think we're at war. Not Senator Paul. He's a man to himself. He has a view that I don't think is a Republican view. I think it's a legitimately held libertarian view. You got to remember, Senator Paul was the one senator who voted against a resolution that said the policy of the United States will not be to contain a nuclear-capable Iran. It was 90-1. To his credit, he felt like that would be provocative and it may lead to a military conflict. He'd rather have a nuclear-capable Iran than use military force. And he said so, to his credit. 90 of us thought, well, we would like not to have a military conflict with Iran, but we're not going to contain a nuclear-capable Iran, Senator McCain, because it's impossible. What would happen is if Iran got a nuclear weapon, the Sunni Arab states would want a nuclear weapon, and most of us believe that they would share the technology with a terrorist that would wind up attacking Israel or the United States. It's not so much I fear a missile coming from Iran. I fear if they got a nuclear weapon or nuclear technology, they would give it to some terrorist organization like they gave IEDs to Shia militia in Iraq to kill Americans, and they would wreak havoc on the world. So we don't believe in containing, letting them have it and trying to contain them, because we believe their association with terrorism is too long and too deep. That's too dangerous for Israel, too dangerous for us. But Senator Paul, to his credit, was okay with that. I just disagree with him. Now, as to what he's saying about the drone program, he has come our way some, and I want to appreciate that. Before, he had some doubt in his mind as to whether or not we should have killed Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen, an American citizen who had collaborated with Al-Qaeda, was actually one of the military leaders of Al-Qaeda in Yemen, who had radicalized Major Hassan, who had been involved in planning terrorist attacks against U.S. forces throughout the region. President Obama was informed through the military intelligence community channels of Anwar al-Awlaki's existence, all the videos he made supporting jihad and killing Americans, and he, as commander-in-chief, designated this person as an enemy combatant. Mr. President, you did what you had the authority to do, and I congratulate you for making that informed decision, and the process to get on this target list is very rigorous. I think sometimes almost too rigorous. But now, apparently, Senator Paul says it's okay to kill him because we have a photo of him with an RPG on his shoulder. He's moved the ball. He's saying now that he wants this president to tell him that he will not use a drone to kill an American citizen sitting in a cafe having a cup of coffee, who is not a combatant. I find the question offensive. As much as I disagree with President Obama, much as I support past presidents, I do not believe that question deserves an answer. Because as Senator McCain said, this president is not going to use a drone against a non-combatant sitting in a cafe anywhere in the United States, nor will future presidents, because if they do, they will have committed an act of murder. Non-combatants under the law of war are protected, not subject to being killed randomly. So to suggest that the president won't answer that question somehow legitimizes that the drone program is going to result in being used against anybody in this room having a cup of coffee, to me, cheapens the debate and is something not worthy of the times in which
Could I ask my colleague a question, especially on that subject? A lot of our friends, particularly Senator Paul and others, pride themselves on their strict adherence to the Constitution and the decisions of the United Supreme Court.
Right.
Isn't it true that as a result of an attack on Long Island during World War II, that American citizen, among others, was captured and hung on American soil, and the United States Supreme Court upheld that execution because that individual was an enemy combatant? Does that establish without a doubt
well, there is
the fact that these are enemy combatants, and no matter where they are subject to the form of justice as the terrorist in World War II was?
It's been a long-held concept in American jurisprudence that when an American citizen sides with the enemies of our nation, they can be held, captured, and treated as an enemy combatant. They have committed an act of war against our country, not a common crime. So in World War II, you had German saboteurs land in Long Island. They had been planning and training in Germany to blow up a lot of infrastructure, and some of it, I think, was in Chicago. So they had this fairly elaborate plan to attack us. They came out of a submarine. They landed in Long Island, and the plan was to have American citizens sympathetic to the Nazi cause, of German origin, most of them, to meet them and provide them shelter and comfort. Well, the FBI back then broke that plot up, and they were arrested. The American citizens were tried by military commission, and they were found guilty, and a couple of them were executed. Now, there's been a case in the War on Terror where an American citizen was captured in Afghanistan. Our Supreme Court reaffirmed the proposition that we can hold one of our own as an enemy combatant when they align themselves with the forces against this country. This Congress, right after the September 11th attacks, designated authorization to use military force against Al-Qaeda and affiliated groups. So the Congress has given every president since 9/11 the authority to use military force against Al-Qaeda and affiliated groups. And American citizens like Anwar al-Awlaki, the guy, Hamdi, that was captured in Afghanistan, have been treated as enemy combatants. And if President Obama does that, he's doing nothing new or novel. What would be novel is for us to say that if a terrorist cell came to the United States, an Al-Qaeda cell was operating in the United States, that's a common crime and the law of war doesn't apply. It would be the most perverse situation in the world for the Congress to say that the United States itself is a terrorist safe haven when it comes to legal rights, that we can blow you up with a drone overseas, we can capture you in Afghanistan, hold you under the law of war, but if there's a terrorist cell operating in the United States, somehow you're a common criminal, we read your Miranda rights. And I just add this one thing, get Senator McCain's thought. I hope you realize that hypothetically, there are Patriot missile batteries all over Washington. that could interdict an airplane coming to attack this Capitol or the White House or other vital government facilities. I hope you understand, Senator McCain's a fighter pilot, that their F-15s and F-16s on 3 to 5 minute alert all up and down the East Coast. And if there is a vessel coming into the United States where a plane's been hijacked or a ship's been hijacked, loaded with munitions, or the threat is real that they've taken over a craft and about to attack us, I hope all of us would agree using military force in that situation is not only lawful under the authorization to use military force, is within the inherent authority of the Commander-in-Chief to protect us all.
It should not be construed as an authority to kill somebody in a cafe.
It should be construed as a reasonable ability to defend the homeland against a real threat. And the question is, do you feel threatened anymore? I do. I think Al-Qaeda is alive and well. And to all those who've been fighting this war for a very long time, multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, you've tried to keep the war over there so it doesn't come here. To the failed plots that have been broken up by the CIA and the FBI, God bless you. We got to be right every time. They only have to be right once. And if you think the homeland is not in the desire of Al-Qaeda, it is absolutely on the top of their list, and they're recruiting American citizens to their cause, and unfortunately, a few will probably go over to their side. Thank God it will be just a few. But to take this debate into the absurd is what I object to. We can have reasonable disagreements about the regulatory nature of the drone program. Should it be under the Department of Defense? What kind of oversight Congress should have? I think that's a really good discussion, and I'd like to work with Senator Durbin and others to craft some situation. The Detainee Treatment Act was where Congress got involved with the executive branch to come up the way to better handle the detainee issue. But the one thing I've been consistent about is I believe there's one commander-in-chief, not 535. And I believe this commander-in-chief and all future commander-in-chiefs are unique in our Constitution and have an indispensable role to play when it comes to protecting the homeland. And if we have 535 commander-in-chiefs, then we're going to be less safe. And if you turn over military decisions to courts, then you've done, I think, the ultimate harm to our nation. You've criminalized the war, and I don't think our judiciary wants that. So as much as I disagree with President Obama, I think you have been responsible in the use of the drone program overseas. I think you have been thorough in your analysis. I'd like to make it more transparent. I'd like to have more oversight. As to the accusation being leveled against you, that if you don't somehow answer this question, we're to assume you're going to use a drone, or your administration or future administrations would, to kill somebody who's a non-combatant, no intelligence to suggest they're an enemy combatant sitting in a cafe by a Hellfire missile, is, I just think, really off base. And I'd add this one final thought. If there is an Al-Qaeda operative, U.S. citizen, who is helping the Al-Qaeda cause in a cafe in the United States, we don't want to blow up the cafe. We want to go in there and grab the person for intelligence purposes. The reason we're using drones in Afghanistan and Pakistan, we don't have any military presence along the tribal border. The reason we're having to use drones is we can't capture people. The preference is to capture them, not to kill them. But there's certain areas where they operate that the only way we can get to them is through a drone strike. And I would say this.
And could I just say to my friend, there is scenarios where there could be an extreme situation where there is a direct threat. We could draw many scenarios. A bomb-laden, explosive-laden vehicle headed for the nuclear power plant, where the President of the United States may have to use any asset that the President has in order to prevent an impending catastrophic attack on the United States of America. And that is not that is within the realm of possible scenarios. So to somehow say that we would kill people in cafes and therefore drone strikes should never be used under any circumstances, I believe is a distortion of the realities of the threats we face. As we are speaking, there are people who are plotting to attack the United States of America. We know that. And at the same time, we are ready, as you said, to discuss, debate, and frame legislation which brings us up to date with the new kind of war that we are in. But to somehow have a debate and a discussion that we would have killed Jane Fonda it does, in my view, a disservice to the debate that needs to be and discussion that needs to be conducted.
That's a very good point. I look forward to a discussion about how to deal with the drone program. It's just a tactical weapon. It is an air platform without a pilot. Now, if there is a truck going toward a military base or nuclear power plant, we've got a lot of assets to interdict that truck. Maybe you don't need the F-16. But I guarantee if there's a hijacked aircraft coming to the Capitol, that the President of the United States would be well in his rights to order the Patriot missile battery to shoot that plane down or to have an F-16 shoot it down. And we're ready for that, by the way. And I would just suggest one thing. The number of Americans killed in the United States by drones is 0. The number of Americans killed in the United States by Al-Qaeda is 2,958. The reason it's not 2 million, 20 million, or 200 million is because they can't get the weapons to kill that many of us. The only reason it's 2,958 is because their weapons of choice couldn't kill more. Their next weapon of choice is not going to be a hijacked airplane, I fear. It's going to be some nuclear technology or chemical weapon, a weapon of mass destruction. That's why we have to be on our guard. And when you capture someone who's associated with Al-Qaeda, the best thing is to hold them for interrogation purposes, because we found bin Laden not through torture, my friend. We found bin Laden through a decade of putting the puzzle together. And Senator Durbin, Senator McCain, both of you were very, I think, effective advocates that we have to live within our values, and that when we capture somebody, we're going to hold them under the law of war. We're going to exploit intelligence, but we're going to do it within the laws that we've signed up to, like the Geneva Convention, the Convention Against Torture. So to my friends on this side of the aisle, absolutely.
My colleagues on the other side of the aisle. It was 12 hours ago when I was standing right here in a lonely voice among others who were discussing this issue, bringing up the points that you raised. The first is the drone is a weapon. There are many weapons that can deliver lethal force. We should view this as an issue of lethal force, not an issue of drones per se, although it may raise some particular questions in application. It is largely a question of lethal force. The second question has been raised by both senators. What if the fourth airplane had not been brought down by the passengers? What if that plane were headed for this Capitol building and all other planes had been landed across America under orders of our government, and we knew this plane was the fourth plane in control of the terrorists? What authority did President Bush have as commander-in-chief at that moment? I don't think anyone would question. He had the authority to use lethal force to stop the terrorists from using that plane as the fourth weapon against the United States. And I don't think there was no debate last night about that particular point. This notion, and I'm glad that this point has been raised, that we are somehow going to use drones to kill people sipping coffee in cafes is ludicrous. It is absurd. It goes beyond the obvious. We need those people. Bringing those people into our control gives us more information. And secondly, I mean, for goodness sakes, the collateral damage of something that brutish would be awful. So I thank you for putting it in perspective. I think that Attorney General Holder could have been more artful in his language yesterday, but at the end of the day, even Senator Cruz acknowledged that he said it would be unconstitutional to use this kind of lethal force if there wasn't an imminent threat pending against the United States.
Could I just say real quick, an imminent threat?
Yes.
Now, we may have to do a little better job of defining that, but to say imminent threat would then translate into killing somebody in a cafe is not a mature debate or discussion.
If I could add, let me tell you about imminent threat in military law. In Iraq, you had disabled terrorist insurgents. And there was a big debate in the Marine Corps because under military law, when a lawful combatant, a person in uniform, has been disabled and it doesn't present an imminent threat, you don't have the ability to shoot them. Okay. The terrorists in Iraq put IEDs on wounded belligerents, unlawful enemy combatants. So the Marine Corps wrestled very long and hard with the rules of engagement. If you saw somebody, you come upon somebody who was wounded who apparently was disabled, under what circumstances could you use lethal force because they may be booby-trapped? To the Marine Corps' credit, they came up with a balance between who we are, we just don't shoot even our enemies who are helpless and wounded, and the ability for force protection. Here's what I would say about the circumstance in question. The process of determining who an enemy combatant is has always been a military process. It's not a congressional debate. Our committees do not get a list of names and we make a vote on whether or not we think they're an enemy combatant. Courts don't have trials over who an enemy combatant is. If there's a question about enemy combatant status under the Geneva Convention, you're entitled to a single hearing officer, and that's all. In World War II, there were a lot of people captured in German uniform who claimed that they were made to wear the uniform by the Germans, and all of them had a hearing on the battlefield by a single officer. It has been long held in military law that it is a military decision, not a judicial decision or a legislative decision, to determine the enemy of the nation. So President Obama has really taken this far beyond what it was envisioned. This administration has a very elaborate process to determine who should be determined to be an enemy combatant. I think it's thorough. I think it has many checks and balances. And as much as I disagree with this president on many issues, I would never dream of taking that right away from him, because he is the same person, the commander-in-chief, whoever he or she may be in the future, that we give the authority to order American citizens in battle where they may die. He has the authority to pick up a phone, Senator McCain, and say, you will launch today, and you may not come back. I can't imagine a Congress who's okay with the authority to order an American citizen in battle. We don't want to take that away from him, I hope. That's uncomfortable with the same person determining who the enemy we face may be. As to American citizens, here's the law. If you collaborate with Al-Qaeda or their affiliates, and you're engaged in helping the enemy, you're subject to being captured or killed under the law of war. What is an imminent threat? The day that you associate yourself with Al-Qaeda and become part of their team, everywhere you go and everything you do presents a threat to the country. So why do we shoot people walking down a road in Pakistan? They don't have a weapon. There's no military person in front of them that's threatened. The logic is that once you join Al-Qaeda, you're a de facto imminent threat because the organization you're supporting is a threat. So for someone to suggest we got to let them walk down the road, go pick up a gun and head toward our soldiers before you can shoot them is not very healthy for the soldier they're trying to kill, and it would be a total distortion of law as it exists. Back here at home, and I'll conclude.
Senator would allow me to just make
Please.
one last comment, and I thank you for this statement on the floor from both of my colleagues. The Judiciary Committee, Subcommittee on Constitution, is going to have a hearing already scheduled on this issue of drones. And there are legitimate questions to be raised and answered. And I might add that my conversations with the President, he welcomes this. He has invited us to come up with a legal architecture to make certain it is consistent with existing precedent in military law and other court cases, as well as our Constitution. And I think that is a healthy environment for us to have this hearing and invite all points of view and try to come up with a reasonable conclusion.
Could not welcome that more. It worked with the Detainee Treatment Act. It worked with the Military Commissions Act. I just think it's the right way to go.
If I can make one unanimous consent request before I leave. I thank my colleagues. Madam President, I have 8 unanimous consent requests for committees to meet today during the session of the Senate. With the approval of the majority and minority leaders, I ask unanimous consent that these requests be agreed to and printed in the record.
Without objection.
President, I think that concludes our discussion, but I would agree with the senator from Illinois and my colleague from South Carolina. We need hearings. We need to discuss how we conduct this, the United States, in what appears to be, for all intents and purposes, an interminable conflict that we are in, and we have to adjust to it. But that conversation should not be talking about drones killing Jane Fonda and people in cafes. It should be all about what authority and what checks and balances should exist in order to make it a most effective ability to combat an enemy that we know will be with us for a long time.
I just have 2 minutes to wrap up, I will. To my fellow citizens, the chance of you being killed by a drone because you go to a Tea Party rally or MoveOn.org rally or any other political rally, or you're just chatting on the internet quietly at home by your government through the use of a drone is zero under this administration and future administrations. And if that day ever happened, the President of the United States or whoever ordered such an attack would have committed murder and would be tried. I don't worry about that. Here's what I worry about: that Al-Qaeda, who's killed 2,958 of us, is going to add to the total if we let our guard down. And I will do everything in my power to protect this president, who I disagree with a lot, and future presidents from having an ill-informed Congress take over the legitimate authority under the Constitution and the laws of this land to be the commander-in-chief on behalf of all of us. As to any American citizen thinking about joining up with Al-Qaeda, at home or abroad, you better think twice, because here's what's going to come your way. If we can capture you, we will. You will be interrogated. You will go before a federal judge, and one day you will go before a court. And you will have a lot of legal rights, but if you're found guilty, woe be unto you. And here's another possibility. If you join with these thugs and these nuts to attack your homeland, and if we have no ability to capture you, we will kill you. And we will do it because you made us. And the process of determining whether or not you have joined Al-Qaeda is not going to be some federal court trial. It's not going to be a committee meeting in the Congress, because if we put those conditions on our ability to defend ourselves, we cannot act in real time. Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're at war. I think we're at war with an enemy who would kill us all if they could. In every war America's been in, we've recognized the difference between fighting crime and fighting a war. And if you believe as I do, we're at war, those who aid our enemies are not going to be treated as if they robbed a liquor store. They're going to be treated as the military threat they are.